Before we get into the meeting, I will turn things over to staff to discuss the meeting format.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight's meeting will be conducted through a hybrid in-person/online meeting platform. Should an individual planning commissioner become unexpectedly disconnected, please rejoin the meeting at your first opportunity. The record will reflect your attendance. The meeting will be paused for up to 10 minutes to address technical difficulties. If they cannot be resolved within 10 minutes, then the meeting will proceed so long as a quorum of planning commissioners are present. However, it just dawned on me there's nobody joining us remotely, so I apologize. This is out to the general audience. If you wish to comment or need clarification on a public hearing item, please send us an email at planninginquiry, all one word, at franklincountywa, all one word, .com, or .gov. So planninginquiry at franklincountywa.gov. Before the public comment period closes. Once public comment period has closed on an item, comments will not be included as part of the discussion. Chair?
Will planning staff please call roll and announce whether or not we have a quorum?
Mike Corrales,
Here.
Mike Vincent,
Here.
Leighton Lowe, Peter Harpster,
Here.
Manny Gutierrez,
Here.
Stacy Knifton,
Here.
Melinda Didier.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Will staff in attendance please introduce yourselves?
I'm Derek Broughton, Director of Planning and Building.
Ryan Nelson, Planner 1.
Aaron Gunderson, Planner 1.
And I believe Jen
This
Johnson.
is Jen Johnson. I'm county legal, and I'm on the phone.
Thank you.
Okay, I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Second. It has been moved by Commissioner Didier and seconded by Commissioner Vincent. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. It is now time for the public hearing portion of our meeting. Good evening and welcome. I will turn things briefly over to our staff host who will go over the ground rules for tonight's hearing.
Here are the ground rules for tonight's hybrid hearing. In-person public testimony will be divided into two groups, for and against / neutral. They will be called upon to speak during their allotted in-person public testimony section, giving their name for the audio record and position on the proposal. Call-in public testimony will be called upon individually during the call-in public testimony portion of the hearing, giving their name for the audio record, as well as if they are in favor, neutral, or against the proposal. Please mute your audio when not speaking. Email comments received during the public hearing will be read into the record by staff after the call-in public testimony section of the hearing. All comments and questions shall be addressed to the Planning Commission and should be relevant to the application and not be of a personal nature. Each speaker shall have 5 minutes to provide testimony. Please avoid repetitive comments. If there are a large number of speakers who are part of a group or organization, please select a representative to speak on behalf of the group. Behavior such as clapping, booing, hissing, or remarks is prohibited. Every citizen here tonight should have the opportunity to testify without such distractions.
Are there any questions regarding the public hearing ground rules? Turning for a moment to our commission members, let us keep in mind that we are prohibited by law from communicating with members of the public on the subject matter of these hearings except in these hearings. We also may not participate in a decision in which there is an appearance of conflict of interest to the average person. So let us take a minute to consider as to the matters which are before us for hearing today. Whether we have had any ex parte communications, whether we have any ownership interest in the properties, whether we have any business dealings with proponents or opponents of the matters, or whether we have business associates or immediate family who may either benefit or harmed by a decision in these matters. Are there any commission members who have a declaration at this time regarding any of the items on the agenda?
Go ahead and grab that mic and, yeah. Red light's on.
So I work for the applicant's representative for agenda items 3 and 4. So I'll be recusing myself for those 2 items. It's my understanding, talking to Mr. Brayton, that I can recuse myself but still sit in here and just not participate in any of the discussion, obviously not making a vote.
Yeah, that would be correct. It's just no questions, no participation in the discussion, but there's no requirement that you step down
Okay,
from the dais.
that's all for me.
Is there anyone in the audience this evening who would object to any commission member hearing any of the items on the agenda? Let there show the record there were no objections. The order of the hearing should be as follows. Planning staff shall provide a staff report. The commission may ask questions of staff. The applicant or applicant's representative's presentation. In-person public testimony. A, for, B, against, or neutral. Call-in public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project. Email public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project, if any, be read into the record by staff. Final comments. Clarification of public statements that occurred during the testimony portion of the public hearing. Then close to the public hearing and Planning Commission discussion of the proposed action. Are there any procedural questions before we begin the public hearing? Seeing none. Item number 1 is a public hearing for file CUP 2021-14. A proposal is to allow for a detached accessory dwelling unit. This is a land use action that is allowed only upon approval of a CUP as provided in FCC 1766.06J. The request will add an 1,173 square foot manufactured DADU on the property. Zoning for the property is rural residential 5 RR-5 with a rural remote comprehensive land use designation. I declare the public hearing for CUP 2021-14 open at 6:39. May staff present the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned, this is a request for a detached accessory dwelling unit located at, well, it's on the next slide. Located at 291 Mulberry Road, Pasco, Washington, on parcel number 124611068. Property is located to the east of Taylor Flats Road, east of Mulberry Road, west of Michelle Road, north of Honeysuckle Road, south of Tracy Road, and south of Alder Road. There will be a map. You'll see why there's so many roads. There's a lot of accesses over there compared to a lot of these areas. Comp plan, as mentioned, is rural remote with a zoning designation of rural residential 5. Applicant is seeking to add a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,173 square foot double wide mobile home as a detached accessory dwelling unit. Current property size of the parcel is approximately 4.97 acres. That's net. Area to be used would be to accommodate the footprint of the detached accessory dwelling unit. And it's a manufactured unit. It's new, isn't it? Yeah, it's a new unit, so. And here's a map of the proposed site. Hey, Aaron, can you get these front lights down? It's just, it's a little hazy. Is that easier to see? You're getting all the ones except for the ones I wanted. Okay, so there's the subject area, and this is, there's a lot of accesses up and through here, which is impressive because usually these Lammards don't tend to have one, but this is a pretty well-developed Lammard. It's a little hard to see because it's a hand drawing, but existing barn. There's the existing home, another barn. This is the proposed location of the ADU, or the ADU. So, then that's the drain field. As you can see, it's got its own septic for a sanitary sewer. These are sites of the or shots of the property from the assessor's site. These are us taking photos when we went out to post the property. This is a floor plan of the proposed unit. The staff notified agencies, mailed notice to property owners within 1 mile, posted the property, and made a SEPA determination, as well as published in the Franklin County Graphic on January 27, 2022, regarding this proposal. Received 2 comments. Oh, now all of a sudden it's working all super fast. One expressed concern regarding the area being subdivided. That is not proposed in the proposal. There is no subdivision. It's merely a standard allowance for any property owner in Franklin County that's on 2 acres or larger property has a right to apply for conditional use permit for the housing of, as they put it, aged parents and/or disabled family members. And then the second one concerned that basically this would conflict with the CC&R's codes, covenants, and restrictions associated with the subdivision or the property. It does need to be remembered that though Franklin County may approve a conditional use permit, it does not guarantee that the applicant would be able to meet the conditions or requirements. The county does not involve itself in CC&Rs. CC&Rs are a contract between landowners, so it's a civil matter between landowners. The county just does not get involved in those determinations. There's also a concern regarding effectively the steam oiling. It's allowing this will change the way the property values and meaning of this covenant, and I'm concerned that it won't stop. It's no parties are allowed no more than 1 detached unit on their property. They must be limited in size, and they can only be occupied by family members, generally aged, people that need assistance. Sometimes a DADU may be allowed for the caretaker. If somebody has a 24/7 caretaker, like a nurse or something like that, they could also potentially occupy it, whereas the family member is actually living in the main house. But those are really the only 2 times. Out in the AP20s, there's also an allowance for farm family homes, but that's not really in this discussion at this point in time because this property is RR5. So some of the AP20 allowances don't apply to this property. As mentioned, it's a new double-wide And as, this is a quote of the code, accessory dwelling units detached, 1 DADU is permitted if the parcel is 2 acres or larger, shall not exceed 1,600 square feet, and may be a factory assembled home, but they have to receive a conditional use permit and be for the purpose of caring for aged parents. And those are the quoted codes. Guess I'm tapping too hard. Proposed DADU will not change the boundaries, look, or character of the area. The applicant is not asking to subdivide or rezone the property. And in fact, the property cannot be further subdivided as it is already at its minimum lot size allowance. The only way that would happen is through basically the whole area. This is what's known as the local area of more intense rural development. They were actually formulated back in the days when the county allowed for 5-acre segs, and the LAMRs were created in order to ensure that these properties that no longer met the rural minimum lot requirements were designated as allowed uses. It assists with anytime somebody's trying to do financing or something. These don't have an approved non-conforming use designation on them. They are approved. They're just designated. But because of that, their boundaries and their acreage allotments are pretty set in stone. It takes an extreme amount of effort, including a comprehensive plan change and various other things, in order to even start talking about changing the zoning or the minimum lot sizes in that area. Franklin County, as I mentioned, does not enforce subdivision covenants. These are agreements between landowners within the subdivision. They're strictly civil matter, and they have to be resolved between property owners. The DADU would be in compliance with the rural remote comp plan land use designation. And as I mentioned, it's not going to affect that outer boundary, which is the specific area of 5-acre lots that were created. I don't know when they were, but it was a while back. Under the 2018 Franklin County Comprehensive Plan, a rural remote comprehensive is a type 1 LAMR. And basically, under that, the purpose of these areas is to protect property rights, and encourage infill and limit expansion of the logical outer boundary, LOB. Recognize and protect neighborhood developed prior to GMA while encouraging infill. That's what I was talking about earlier, where these were set up. Folks in good conscience moved onto the properties, and the land designations around it changed. So the county, in order to accommodate that, created LAMRs. Limit commercial and industrial activities, and encourage residential development and home occupations, and encourage agricultural production on properties where such use is viable. Another way of putting that is large lot, rural, or hobby farms is another common way you'll hear those specific areas referred to. So therefore, it has been determined that this proposal is in conformance with the policy set forth in 2018 Franklin County Comprehensive Plan for Rural Remote Type 1 LAMRs. Staff has further determined that the proposal meets the regulations set forth in Chapter 1716, 1766, and 1782. And the Planning Department does support a positive recommendation for this application, provided the applicant meets the conditions of the conditional use permit. Just some of the comments that we received. Public Works will need a approach permit. The owner builder will need to contact BBEC to discuss how to power, what the requirements for connecting that unit to power will be. That's again between them and the service provider. And then Benton Franklin Health District basically approved it such that they've indicated that it is the site is able to accommodate the required sewer, septic tank, and that was shown in that original, or the site plan. Yep, gotta be soft on it. So findings, our recommended findings of fact of the RR5 zoning district. The proposed use is in accordance with the goals, policy of county development regulations and the comprehensive plan, will not adversely affect public infrastructure. Proposal will be constructed, maintained, and operated to be in harmony with the existing or intended character. The new unit doesn't look any different than a lot of the units that are already out there. The location and height of the structure will not discourage the development of permitted use on property. Again, these are large lot residential uses primarily. Nothing in this application would prevent a person from doing it. In fact, the location is kind of clustered in the middle of their already existing buildings. Okay, it will not be more objectionable to nearby properties by reason of noise, fumes, vibration, dust, traffic, and flashing lights. In fact, farming operations would produce more of a disturbance, and that's permitted by right in the area as well. And then it will not endanger the public's health, safety, or general welfare because it has been approved for appropriate sanitary sewer to meet the requirements of Washington state law regarding those types of uses. So in addition to the standard CUP language, the DADU shall have an address of 293 Mulberry Road. They shall obtain a factory assembled structure FAS placement permit. It shall not be sold separately from the primary dwelling. So in other words, while that structure is there, any potential buyers of the property, if they were to sell it, would have to be willing to purchase both units. Or one would have to be removed or decommissioned. The ADU living area should not be used for other than its intended purposes. In other words, it's got to be used as a residence. It's not an office. It's not anything like that. If they were to seek to use it for such, like in a home occupation or something like that, they would have to come back and talk to us about it, and then we would figure out the appropriate approval mechanism. But it would not be by fiat, or it would probably come back to the planning commission or something like that, because it's a modification of the conditional use that we're approving this evening, or reviewing this evening. Applicant will need to follow the provisions of Franklin County Code for detached accessory dwelling units. And then we have a recommended motion, and more than happy to answer any questions.
Does any commissioner have any questions of staff?
I do.
Yeah.
My question is, so there will be a title elimination then on the DADU that's going to be moved in? It's like permanently, it'll be on a foundation and permanently affixed?
Not necessarily, no, that would not be a requirement
Oh, okay.
that I'm aware of. I would have to go back and check. It's more in my building department. So I'd have to go look in the zone. In a lot of zones, Franklin County does not have a requirement for the removal of the wheels, but in other ones it does. I just have to, there's 3 actual scenarios.
Oh, wow.
In AP 20 in the ag lands, there's nothing. And then in, if you're in a rural rural residential, there's different regulations than if you're outside of that. So this one would be in a rural settlement area. That's what it is, it's rural settlement. We have too many rural things and I get them confused in my head, so I apologize. But it'll have to, whatever's been permitted before is what would be repeated in that specific zone. So if there is a pit set requirement or a foundation requirement, then that would be required.
The reason I'm asking is because I just was wanting to know what the inevitable, life happens and the aging parents are not living there any longer, then what happens?
And that's why it may be the case that they're not going to be required to put it on a foundation because it's easier to move the unit after the fact if necessary.
Well, could it, I mean, is there something written in where they signed something during the permitting process that says that only family members are
Yes.
allowed to live in the accessory dwelling unit and not, necessarily just aging parents, but it has to be a family member?
It's what we call a multi-dwelling, what is that form? No, yeah, so there is a form that they'll have to do at the time of permitting.
So it could be different family members, as time progresses, if that's what happens.
As long as they're aged or disabled or something like that. Right now, we do not have an allowance for those types of scenarios at the current time.
And so if the property is sold, then does that use carry on with new property owners?
No,
That's what we
most
have,
likely
basically.
this would be probably a conditional use, this would be a conditional use that is to the Espinosas only. A new purchaser seeking to utilize that property would have to reapply.
Oh, okay.
Because, again, this is being granted to the Espinosas, not the public in general. This is not something that's running with the land. This is to the Espinosas for specific use, under specific circumstances and scenario. The future acquisition of the property by another party, frankly, I would have to see what's in place at that time. But if it were to happen tomorrow, then those folks would have to either leave it empty or it would have to be occupied by an aged parent or disabled family member. That's what our code says.
Okay, question. I think you answered it. What Melinda was talking about is basically a modification to that conditional use permit to another party.
Correct.
So we've come to that because if it changed and the property was sold, then the new owner would have to reapply if they wanted to CUP
Correct, because this is issued to the Espinosas.
specific.
Yep.
All right. The other thing I had a question on, there's a separate septic system. I
Yes.
couldn't see the site plan, but it's the same amount.
Yeah, they have the existing, so here's the existing for the existing house. This is the proposed septic for the house itself, or the ADU
Okay,
is up
great.
there, so.
Last question. Does the county, in a certain circumstance, provide, I think there's a provision for a CUP or, say, workers' quarters or something like that?
No,
Is that possible?
that's not through us. Worker housing,
Right.
well, out in the AP zones, that's
Okay,
different.
That's AP 20 then?
Out in the AP 20, there's an allotment for up to 4 farm labor, not farm labor housing, don't want to use that, but basically workers that are permanent hired help.
Right.
You can build up to 4 units without a conditional use permit, and/or farm family, meaning family members that are working on that facility or for that operation. A lot of farmers have multiple properties. All their housing may be clustered on one property, whereas they own 4 other, a total of, 2,000 acres of land that they're working.
Right.
They could all be clustered in one area, they could be scattered around. It's really up to the landowner in that point. But anything more than 4 units in that circumstance requires a conditional use permit and review. Up to that point, it's permitted by right.
That's
Provided.
There's no more than 2.
On a 5-acre lot, you're permitted by right 1 unit.
Right.
You can do an attached by right, but that's limited to 800 square feet. Or you can come in for 1 detached through a conditional use permit. But those are only for aged parents, or, like I said, a nurse or something like that to assist with aged or
Why would you need
disabled family.
CUP for an addition on your house?
You don't those aren't, those are permitted by right, but they're still only allowed to be occupied by the same
Right.
types of folks.
Yeah. Okay.
Just got one as well, it's the same question, but, the applicable code states that the conditions permit may require that upon termination of the specific use, the dwelling shall be removed. So question one is what would turn that may require to a will require? And then on that, one of the comments from the planning department said that the ADU shall not be sold separately. So if they were required to remove it, would they still not be allowed to sell it?
No, it's a matter of, that, what we're meaning there is that you can't break the property, you can't subdivide the property and sell off a chunk of land with the house on it. On that one. On the first one, when would may become shall? I can't answer that. It's going to depend. It would always depend on the specifics of the situation, and that's why it would go through a process. We would look at what's going on, make that determination as to whether or not, and then yes, it is possible that they could be required to remove it. If they violate conditions of the conditional use permit, that's also grounds for the board, but that would be a decision of the Board of County Commissioners. There would be a hearing before that body. They would make the decision as to what the final disposition of the issue would be.
And on that note too, one, just get ignorance, but how is the use enforced? And is it just, if a neighbor happened to notice or something?
Yep. County is going through a significant update to its codes. And some of these questions are being asked and investigated as to how we think that, whether that should be maintained, recommendation to change that, or what. We're in that process now.
Any more questions? Does the applicant or applicant's representative wish to speak?
That'd be me.
You need to come up to the mic.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So you guys have great questions, some questions that I thought of also. This property will never be sold. It will be paid off. It will be given to my grandchildren and my children in our will.
Can you
And they
state your
know
name for
that
the
it-
record?
Oh, I'm sorry, Maria Espinosa.
Thank you.
So that is our plan. There's already a septic tank in the back.
Oh, okay.
So it's already been there, because the previous owners, they were going to do exactly the same thing. So what they did is they already had the septic tank installed, and they ended up selling it. Not sure why, but they ended up selling it. So that's when we had Ben Franklin come out and make sure that that septic tank was usable. And, but it is gonna be for my parents. I don't hire helping hands. It's only 5 acres. It's not that much property. Well, not for me, my husband. And our plan is just for our cows. We don't need hired help. When my parents do pass away, that unit, that the manufactured home will still stay there. For in case one day my grandchildren or my children will have to take care of me. We don't go into nursing homes. Just don't do it. So I will be taking care of my parents. My brother died last year, so I am responsible for my parents. That's it.
Any questions?
Is there any public testimony for the project? Is there any public testimony against or neutral? Is there any call-in public testimony at all? Good. Email public testimony. Does staff have any final comments?
Nope.
Is there any clarification of public statements needed by anyone from the audience? No. The public testimony portion of this public hearing for CUP 2021-14 is closed. Is there any discussion amongst the Planning Commission prior to entertaining a motion?
I was wondering if we could have that motion be put up
Oh.
there.
Oh,
Better to-
put the motion back on? We'll see if it wants to cooperate with it. Yeah, I think I can do that. Nope.
Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Franklin County Planning Commission recommend that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the 6 findings of fact and 9 conditions of approval detailed in the staff report and approve case file CUP 2021-14.
It has been moved and seconded that we forward to the Board of Commissioners a recommendation for approval of CUP 2021-14 with the 6 findings of fact and 9 conditions of approval. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mike Corrales,
Yes.
Mike Vincent,
Yes.
Stacy Knifton,
Yes.
Manny Gutierrez,
Yes.
Peter Harpster,
Yes.
Melinda Didier.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion has been approved.
Okay, the motion is approved. Item number 2. Item number 2 is the public hearing for file CUP 2022-01. A proposal is to allow for a detached accessory dwelling unit. This is a land use action that is allowed only upon approval of a CUP, as provided in FCC 1766060. The request will add a 1,400 square foot stick-built DADU on the property. Zoning for the property is Rural Community 5, RR-5, with a Rural Shoreline Development Comprehensive Land Use Designation. I declare the public hearing for CUP 2022-1 open at 7:08. May we have staff present the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is CUP 2022-01. It's a request for a DADU, another DADU, but in a different area. Excuse me. This property is located at 140 Larkspur Road, Pasco, Washington, parcel number 126190210. Property is located to the south of Sagemore Road, west of Larkspur Road, and east of Columbia River Road. As mentioned, it's a rural shoreline development, RC5. The last one was RR5, if I remember right, yeah. Applicant is seeking to add a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,400 square foot, single-family home to the property as a detached accessory dwelling unit. Current property size of the parcel is approximately 5 acres. And as mentioned, it's a stick-built. That's the proposed property right here. This is, that's Larkspur there. Sagemore's right here. This is where Sagemore turns into Columbia River, right there, somewhere through there. All of a sudden, the sign starts saying Sagemore right around in there. But anywho, so that's the site. This is the proposed site plan. Existing residence is here, proposed residence is over here. There's an existing shop on the property. separate septic. This is for the house, that's the septic for this. And your site photos. Now, those were assessor, this is from when we went out to post the property. This is a blueprint of the building. Garage, bedroom, great room. It's a covered patio, so that's all outside. The master bathroom, or bedroom, and there's a bathroom there. Looks like it's a walk-in closet, or I'm not sure what that is. I think that's a walk-in closet. And then that's the kitchen. It's called a great room, is what most of us call a living room. Notification to agencies and property owners within 1 mile, as well as the property was posted, the seepage determination of non-significance, and the public notice was published in the Franklin County Graphic, all on March 3rd, 2022. As mentioned, the DADU is a new single-family residence, 1,400 square foot stick-built home that will only house the property owner's parents. I could read all this again, but we just saw all this in the last application. RC5 is different than our R5. It's a little bit more restricted in what's allowed out there. However, there's nothing that would prohibit this in that zone. It's a 2.5 acre, or it's larger than 2.5 acres. So again, there's no issue with the lot size or the zone. So this is another little caveat. In this area, there's limitations on the number of accessory structures a party can build that are permitted, meaning they're over 200 square feet. And then they're allowed up to 2 non-permitted structures, which are less than 200 square feet. This would be their second permitted, therefore they're done. They can't put any more of the larger storage buildings or anything like that. You're also, oh no, that wouldn't apply there because it's over 2.5 acres. Smaller properties start getting into house, lot size, various other weird dimensional requirements that they don't apply to this because it's over 2.5 acres. So we have determined that the proposal meets the regulations set forth under 1720, 1766, and 1782 of the Franklin County Code, and we would support a positive recommendation for this application, again, provided the applicant meets the conditions of the conditional use permit. Very similar comments as the last approach permit. They'll have to coordinate with BBEC regarding power delivery. The Department of Ecology letter is a form letter, if I recall correctly. Yeah, so it's their standard. It talks about hazard, if you're doing this, then you got to do that. If you're doing this, then you got to do this. So it's not necessarily specific, or there's no project-specific comments regarding from ecology on this one. They don't tend to on these. And then as stated, the health district has no objections, but they'll have to get their well changed to a Group B residential because 2 units would be attaching to it. And that the on-site sewer permit is approved. And this is very similar. The biggest difference between this and the last findings of fact is the RR5 was changed to RC5. Really, other than that, it's pretty much the same. Findings of fact, we didn't see any conflicts or issues associated with the proposal. Again, you know, it's going to be, in that area, they'd be required probably at a minimum through their CCRs and maybe even through our code, that they would actually have to match. So all the structures have to match, the exteriors, things like that. It needs to look like it's part of the, in other words, if they got a blue sided house, they can't go and put in a pink stucco DADU. It's got to match. It's got to look compatible or similar to. I could see where different colors would work too, but anywho, that said, again, that requirement tends to come out of the properties that are less than, but based on what I've seen on the property so far, everything seems to be white with siding. So in other words, it's not shouldn't stand out or make anything look weird. There's pool houses out there that are big in that. Again, it's a residential area and it's a proposed residential use. And they're going to have to meet all the health and safety requirements any other residents would meet. It's going to have its own address. It's got to meet the 2018 International Residential Code. Going to have to get a building permit. That's where we'll make sure that everything meets the safety requirements and stuff upon review as far as it meeting the building code. Yeah, I'm not going to. And then, so, suggested motion and happy to answer questions.
Does any commissioner have questions of staff?
I do. And I think he answered it. For I didn't see any elevations on the floor. I saw the floor plan, no elevations. The primary house is more of a traditional colonial look. I mean, this is going to be a one-story. It's going to be just a straight gable, put about roof pitch, in an effort to match the primary house in design and exterior finish.
Yeah, I haven't seen the actual building plans. This is just a floor plan that was submitted with it. But under our codes, generally in this area, you'd be required to match. However, at 2.5 acre or larger lots, that requirement does not apply. So when you start getting beyond, that was more intended to maintain character and style for the smaller lots, like the 1 acre lots and things like that. When we break 2.5 acres, it's, I guess, you know, it's just always been in the codes. I don't know the exact history of the why, but after that, those requirements no longer apply. If you're on a property that's 2.5 acres or larger, you don't have that match exterior
Is that
requirement.
2.5 acres?
It's 5 acres.
That's about 5 acres.
Yeah, so they don't have a requirement to match colors or style in that area. Similar to when you look at, say, the property that's got the Sagemore Kennel on it. The Sagemore Kennel building, blue metal building. The house itself is, I call it Italian. I don't know, man. It's a wild house, but it's, you know, it's all done in white stucco with orange tile roofing. And then I think they have a third building that's, yeah, the barn, and it doesn't match either of those. Why? Because they're on a property larger than 2.5 acres.
Well, that would come under purview of the homeowners association, which I think there could be one at this location.
And that would be a CCNR, that would not be the purview. That's, yeah, so that would be a discussion they have to have with them if they're an active HOA. And then they would have to meet, but if they chose not to, that would be between them and the HOA. The county wouldn't be involved. Again, this is permission to proceed.
Right.
Details may change if there's significant changes. for example, if they expand the square footage or something like that, then that would potentially come back to the planning commission, and have to restart everything. But if they stay within their footprint and they come back with a different 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom house layout and things like that, it would still be what they've been permitted to do, which is a 1,400 square foot stick-built home, if this was to be approved.
It sounds like you guys go to the point where you can even match the primary residence somewhat with your elevations. I mean, that's what I read into it.
That we do or we don't?
You do.
We do under certain circumstances.
But I mean, you can only do so much.
Well, you're limited
400 square
to,
foot
yeah,
range,
exactly, yeah. I mean, you're not,
Unless you increase the roof pitch.
and,
you're
and,
gonna start to get there.
and you're allowed to do up to 35-foot height, building heights in that zone.
Right.
It just, you know, that's really gonna be that's gonna be up to the applicant, how they wanna finish those things out.
Say if they have architectural shingles which match the house, it's pretty typical, similar siding. Like you say, they don't come in apple, orange, depending on the stucco and.
Not usually, no.
Yeah.
You know, so I just, you know, that's really, again, we're not going to generally, except for when it's on a property that's 2.5 acres or smaller, we don't have regulations or requirements regarding those elements, aesthetics as much. The larger the properties get, the less we get involved in the specific aesthetics associated with the property.
I got a question. This might be a pretty novice question. Under the conditions for the ADU and condition requirements, on the limitations on RC5 zone, you require a reserve septic, and this probably, I don't know this property at all. Is there a requirement for a reserve?
Generally, that's through the health department. We don't make that determination. We basically make them do whatever the health department says they have to do. But that did have a reserve shown on the, if I remember right. But they would be, even if it's not on this site plan, they would be required to do that. Yeah, the reserve's right there. So here's the first, and that's the reserve. This one, I don't know where their reserve is, but that's not really in question. That's for the house. This is the area that we're primarily focused in. They do have a designated reserve there. But they would have to get all that approved before we would issue the building permit or be or have approval from the health district for us to release that permit, such that the health district wouldn't be concerned. They've got plenty of land to accommodate the reserve, and in fact, you'll find, actually, I don't know, that probably wouldn't come here, but often what happens is we'll have folks that put a building in and then decide, years later, they need to put a new building on, or another building on top of where they have their reserve. They just go to the health district, and if they've got the area, they can put them, in other locations. I've seen, instead of the stack, I've seen them where they run it the length of the property. It goes like that, so they're end to end instead of side by side. There's a lot of different configurations that can accommodate.
You're right, on the lot that size, the health department is gonna hard to on a reserve.
Yeah.
Drawing, because we have so much room.
Yeah, they're not, but regardless, when they actually apply to build this, they'll have to have a site plan. It'll probably look just like, wouldn't surprise me if they use this one. And it has to mark where the well is, where the water's coming from. Again, this one's gonna have to also get their well designation changed to a Group B, or they're gonna have to punch a separate well. It's easier just to get to Group B. And that means that both of these units will be operating off of a single well, which also is another reason why subdividing or whatnot is less likely, because one, you don't have the zone. This is another zone that's already at its minimum, and the fact that they're going to be sharing a well, it's hard to sell one of those units without having water.
There's a 100-foot radius around that well too.
Correct.
As far as that septic.
Yeah, the septic has to stay at least 100. On a 5-acre lot, you'd be able to, you could probably punch more than one. I don't know about legally, I'm saying the ground could accommodate it and maintain your things. I'm not a water expert, but municipal systems I know a lot about, but that's all between ecology and the health district generally. And the landowner, of course. Any other questions?
Does the applicant or applicant's representative wish to speak?
He had talked about calling in. He's actually has to work this evening. So they're not there.
Can you hear?
Yeah, they're
Can you
there.
hear?
So you don't have any way to know if there's somebody on the phone? Okay, we're gonna have to figure that out.
Oh,
No, you're fine. Not you guys. I'm talking to my staff. Sorry.
oh. So you can hear us or you can't hear us?
No, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, we're here. Sorry.
Okay. Was there anything you'd like to say in regard to the proposal?
Just that, we are setting the house up to take care of our aged parents, and then the plan is, obviously, we wanted just the one well to attach it and keep off the age gap. We would probably need our 50 feet.
We're getting a bad feedback off the phone. So Aaron, can you see, are they being picked up by the mics? Okay.
Is that better?
Can you see them that they're being picked up by the mics when they speak? Go ahead and say what you were saying. I apologize. We got a really bad feedback and I couldn't hear anything. I just heard that whining sound. It's not your fault. It's on us.
Okay. No, sorry. I wasn't sure if it was the video feedback or not, so I went away from that. No, the detached building would be for our parents to take care of them, and then it's all being set up to be like wheelchair accessible. My family has a fun history of having our knees replaced, and I expect to be in the same situation here in the next 30 years. So, just a generational house all together on the same wall.
What's going on here?
Sorry. I have no idea what's up with that.
Well, no, we don't know if we think it might be here. We got a lot of mics.
Okay.
You think
Sorry.
it's that one?
But that was it. No hope to ever separate the property or anything like that. We want it all together, just us and our family.
We found it. It wasn't you. Or maybe it was. I don't know. Anywho. So I want to reiterate what I think I heard. Basically that it's kind of multi-generational housing. For today, what is causing that feedback? And now it's gone again. Today it's going to be for your parents, but you see 30 years from now, because your family has great genetics regarding knees, that you're probably going to need it, and maybe your kids are going to be in the main house in the future?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Oh, now all of a sudden everything is quiet. Earlier, when Commissioner Didier was asking a question, the sirens went off, and I could hardly hear what she was saying earlier, so. Okay. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Is there any in-person public testimony? Any call-in testimony? Any email public testimony? Does staff have any final comments?
Nope.
Is there any clarification of public statements needed by anyone from the audience? The public testimony portion of public hearing CUP 2022-1 is closed. Is there any discussion amongst Planning Commission prior to entertaining a motion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the Franklin County Planning Commission recommend that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the 6 findings of fact and 9 conditions of approval detailed in the staff report and approved case file CUP 2022-01.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Vincent has moved and Commissioner Didier has seconded that we adopt the motion. Is there any discussion? May we have a roll call vote, please?
Mike Corrales,
Yes.
Melinda Didier,
Yes.
Mike Vincent,
Yes.
Layden Lowe is absent. Stacy Knifton,
Yes.
Manny Gutierrez,
Yes.
Peter Harpster. Mr. Chairman, the motion has been approved.
Okay. Item number 3. Item 3 is a public hearing for file SUB 2022-01. The proposal is to allow for the development of a single-family residential subdivision comprising of one parcel, 126-150-142, totaling approximately 25.3 acres. The subdivision would create 21 one-acre lots. The area surrounding the proposed subdivision has a zoning designation of residential suburban 20, RS 20, with a City of Pasco comprehensive land use designation of low-density residential. I declare the public hearing for SUB 2022-1 open at 7:33. May we have staff present the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is SUP 2022-01, Spencer Estates Phase 4. Located in parcel number 126-150-142. It's generally located north of Burns Road, west of Kohler Road, south of Rickey Road, and east of the Columbia River. Comp plan for the city of Pasco. This is in the UGA, so we start getting, that's why we have this comp plan, why we even talk about the comp plan designation from the city of Pasco. And then it's got a zoning of residential suburban 20. So the applicant's seeking allow for development of a 21 one-acre residential lots on 25.3 acres of land comprised of one parcel. This is the site. This is Burns Road. That is, oh, I can't quite read that.
So Rickey Road?
Ricky or Kohler?
Is that Kohler? Okay. I just can't quite read it. Okay, so that's Kohler Road. This is an existing half-acre lot subdivision. These are half-acre lots. This is a different, is this a short plat? That's- Yeah. Yeah, so this was done through a short plat. There's a SEPA out on it though because of its proximity to the river. And then down here is the city of Pasco. So it's right on the border. This is a proposed layout of the property. Access would be coming in off of Burns, primarily up like this, not on Kohler. And then internal access coming out, so. And then there's a north access, I believe that connects to, into the Burns Estates. So that access we saw running north will connect to this right here. So it creates continuity through the subdivisions. So it's a field. Not a lot to see out there right now. If you look to the south, the city is, I don't know what all they got going out there, but they've got at least one, I believe two subdivisions in process right now on the south side of the road. And then there's at least one or two more proposed in the relative near future. We provided all the notice to everybody within a mile. Was that the 600 one? No, okay. We had one that we had to send out 600 notices for. That's right, nobody's in those houses yet because they haven't been built. So, sign was posted, the graphic, the SEPA, all of that was done on the 3rd of March. There's an MDNS. With these subdivisions in these areas, we tend to have to provide a little bit more SEPA review because of the proximity, and DAHP and the tribes have a strong interest in development in this area. So, 25.3 acres, frontage along north extension of Fraser Road. So, nope, that's wrong. I apologize. This is something you're going to see on the next one. As I mentioned, it's not Fraser Road. Is there a road name on that? Or is it still got the letter designators? So this is how it's going to be accessed. Okay, Lazy Bee, that's what it was. So that goes up through here, and then like that. That's the access. The Fraser Road thing will make sense in the next, next one. I apologize. And then the rest of this is right though. So they're seeking exempt wells, private exempt wells on each property and private septic systems. Because of that, no more than half an acre of each property shall be irrigated using that private well. However, if they bring in outside irrigation, I believe this is Franklin County Irrigation District. I could be wrong on that, but regardless, they can either bring in an outside water irrigation provider. They can create their own private system if they wanted to that was independent from the wells, or the entire subdivision cannot use more than 5,000 gallons per day for everything, including irrigation, and no more than half an acre of the property can be irrigated from a potable water source from that well. So That's going to be up to the developer as to how, but there will be a note on the plat. So if they go with exempt wells and on-site irrigation coming from those exempt wells, that would be a note on the plat. If they, well, it's going to be a note regardless, but if they bring in an outside water irrigation source, then the entire subdivision is still limited to 5,000 gallons per day, but the likelihood of them exceeding that gets pretty low if you're not having to irrigate off of that source. Fire suppression will be provided through fire separation requirements because there's, is that it? I didn't recall a proposal for on-site fire suppression, correct? Yeah, okay. Proposed lot plat is located in the Franklin PUD service area for electrical power and service, and Pasco School District serves the area. We received comments, they were pretty standard comments regarding that, similar to what we always get with these applications, nothing that was really unusual. If there was, we would have provided those as part of the presentation, but they're all included in your packets. We received a SEPA checklist. We did issue a MDNS, and then an agreement between the applicant and Pasco School District was reached regarding impacts to the school district. We don't levy impact fees, but what happens is when there's a SEPA, the school district will appeal this SEPA process, which holds up the whole process until that gets kind of worked out between the developer and the school district. The county is not involved in that, but we do either need that agreement or we have to go through the SEPA process, appeal if the school appeals. So in this case, they had the document in advance, so there was no appeal or the agreement in advance. And there's a motion. Happy to answer questions.
Does any commissioner have any questions of staff?
I have some, excuse me, I have some questions. So exactly what are those mitigation measures for the MDNS? And how does one self-impose a PIF and a TIF?
I'm sorry, what?
A traffic impact fee and a park impact fee. How does that? I mean, what's the?
It's basically, what that section means is that in the SEPA, they talk about their traffic stuff, so they provided us the documentation with their traffic stuff. We will then provide for each unit, there's an allocation of, don't ask me about the whole technicalities here, okay? We have a mitigation fee, but we do not collect impact fees.
Okay, so it's just mentioned, but it's not.
Hold on, I've got it, no, I didn't say that, but you're the county does not collect impact fees.
I understand.
However, there are mitigation fees,
Oh, okay.
and those are based on specific numbers generated through the, which one is this? This is it, okay. Through the formulas used by the Public Works Department. So they're the transportation experts, they review the SEPA, and then they tell us what they're gonna have to pay. So in this case, wait, you wanted the SEPA mitigations?
Yeah, I was just curious on if,
In the staff report, there's a section that says. Okay, it's in your staff report.
I didn't bring it with me. I would have needed a little red wagon to back all that stuff here.
MDNS.
Well, no, that's the initial, because there was some mitigation, or some things that were adjusted from that. So,
It's this one, you want to look through it?
What do you mean this is,
this is, section 5, all right.
all right, we'll talk about that. So the recommendation for earthwork, including removal of vegetation, slope stability compaction. Basically, they had a geo done for Spencer's Estates Phase 4. They have to abide by those requirements or recommendations. They have to get a construction stormwater general permit. They have to operate best management practices for dust control. Professional archaeological survey is required before construction can begin. This is based upon comments received from the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation. They have to comply with fire code provisions as expressed in Franklin County Code 8.4. Drainage systems shall be designed to capture and dispose of stormwater runoff on site. Separate source of irrigation water shall be implemented and provided during the life of the project. If no outside irrigation service is available, a note shall be placed on the plat stating that no more than 1/2 acre of land shall be irrigated from each exempt well. No more than 5,000 gallons per day may be withdrawn from groundwater to serve the development. A note shall be placed on the face of the plat regarding this limitation. So those are the SEPA mitigations. As far as the actual conditions, again, they're pretty generic, standard subdivision conditions. They have to get new approaches to county roads require an approach permit. No lot within the subdivision shall have direct access to Burns Road, which is why we saw the feeder roads. They need to agree to participate in a future LID, RID for roads, drainage, curb, and gutter, streetlights, storm sewer, water, and/or sanitary sewers. Lot owners shall be responsible for the maintenance of drainage ditches or swales. Lot owners shall provide landscaping within the unimproved portion of the right-of-way. I love Public Works. All utilities serving the subdivision must be installed underground per Franklin County Code. Permanent control monuments shall be installed. This development shall comply with Franklin County Comp Plan, comprehensive parking ordinance. Now, in short, it's basically you have to have 2 off-street parking. Depending on the street width, it can limit or here it says provision for on-street parking on one side of county roads will not be permitted. So people aren't supposed to be parking in the street. Cul-de-sacs shall be designed with a 47-foot minimum. Reference primary survey control points to section corners. It starts getting into the survey stuff. There it is. Per lot mitigation fee of $519 has been set and will be required for all lots. This is for Burns Road mitigation fee area.
So that's the traffic impact fee.
No, it's the Burns Road mitigation fee. Sorry.
Maybe I'm sorry
The developer shall provide landscape fabric and river rock. So basically, the developer's going to be required to get the swales and stuff
Right.
cleaned up, but then the landowner is required to maintain them after that. And then they'll have to get a signature from Public Works. So I can go through the rest of the
That's
conditions.
okay. That's all
Okay.
right.
I was I'm like, yeah, no, you gotta make me read all this.
Tiny question. The RS-20,
Uh-huh.
is that, you mentioned it's abutting the city limits, and it's in the UGA. So that RS20 is so that more conforms to what the eventual city zoning would be. Is that correct, or?
Frankly, this area's always been zoned RS20.
Oh, okay.
I mean, when I say always, since I came here, it's a transition zone. And currently, right now, the county does not have in place any zones that allow for a higher density than RS20 or 2 units per acre. So it is a transitionary zone. In fact, this would be, almost all the other ones are half-acre lots. This one's being proposed at 1 acre.
Okay. That was it.
All residential suburban. All residential suburban, right?
Correct. The property is RS20, residential, suburban, or, we actually don't know what the R stands for. I call it rural suburban. The code says RS20, suburban 20, so it doesn't tell me what the R stands for.
What's RC? Yeah, what's RC by? Say RR by?
RC is rural community, RR is rural residential,
Right.
and the 5 is 5-acre minimum.
Yeah.
This is the square footage minimum. So RS20 minimum square footage is technically 20,000 square foot, but it's really hard to get a septic on anything less than a half acre. So 22,000.
Any more questions of staff? Does the applicant or the applicant's representative wish to speak?
Good evening, Caleb Stromstead, Octare Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant, Big Sky Developers. Good evening, Planning Commission and staff. We're here in favor of the application. A couple clarifications I'd like to make. It will be served by a private irrigation system. The mitigation fees for traffic, that's the Burns Road, that's in one of the conditions. That's $519 a lot. That assessment was made by the County Public Works Department on their estimate on what it would take to improve Burns Road with the future build-out, and that's the mitigation amount that they determined, and that's been assessed on most of the plats we've done in this area that I've been involved with. I'm not aware of a traffic impact fee or a parks impact fee that is assessed at the time of building permit, but there's no specific conditions in here that speak to that. I did want to bring up one point that I apologize to staff we didn't catch in our earlier review, so we're going to have to deal with it tonight. If you wouldn't mind, Derek, pulling up the plat map on the screen. So if you look at the cul-de-sac, the southern cul-de-sac that's labeled Blackfoot Court, there's 3 lots there, 14, 15, and 16. I'll point to them. Those 3 lots, they're greater than 25,000 square feet. In the county's subdivision code, the minimum lot dimensions for frontage for a lot that's greater than 25,000 feet is 50 feet around a cul-de-sac. If you're less than 25,000 square foot lot, you're required to have a minimum of 35 feet of roadway frontage. What we're proposing on those 3 lots is 37, 37, and 40. So they're all greater than 35, which would be the less than 25,000, but they don't meet the code as it's written because they're greater than 25,000 square feet. Everybody tracking with that? So the way the code's written, it says lot area shall conform as nearly as possible to the requirements. And in that section, Franklin County Municipal Code, section 16.16-040, paragraph C. So I read abbreviated paragraph B, which is the definitions. Paragraph C allows subdivision frontage and lot width depth requirements may be waived only by the Board of County Commissioners through a recommendation by the County Planning Commission if the proposal is in compliance with the standards set forth in section 1620.070. So our specific request is to allow this deviation. I'm just running you through the code real quick. It's the standard findings and facts that the Planning Commission needs to adhere to make this recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. The first one being adequate provisions are made for the public health, safety, general welfare, for open spaces, drainage ways, roads, alleys, other public waterways, supplies, sanitary parks, playgrounds, etc. The general intent of the subdivision, which is largely independent of this decision you'd be making. Section B is the proposed subdivision contributes to the orderly development and land use patterns in the area. We would agree with that. There is a way to comply with the letter of the law. We just make some really goofy side lot lines and make those pie-shaped lots very irregular to get the 50-foot frontage. But we're proposing to keep it traditional. The second paragraph is the public use and interests will be served by permitting the proposed subdivision. Again, we agree with that. It's a uniform looking lot arrangement. Again, if we were forced to comply with the letter of the law, we would have some irregular lot shapes, which technically are allowed by the county, but it wouldn't be in the benefit of the public. Paragraph D. Is this helpful that I go through these item by item? Okay. The proposed subdivision conforms to the general purposes of any applicable policies or plans which have been adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. The general purpose of the subdivision does conform with that. This is a minor deviation we're requesting. Paragraph E says the proposed subdivision conforms to the comprehensive plan and zoning requirements. Again, our preliminary plat does. The last paragraph says the proposed subdivision conforms to the general purposes of this chapter. Again, a generic statement. So our specific recommendation that the Planning Commission would make, we agree with the staff's recommendation for approval, but specifically that the conditions, I'm going to need help with the verbiage, so I'm just going to give it a shot. And the condition to allow lots 14, 15, and 16 with a minimum frontage width of 35 feet. I'll say that again. Do you mind going back to the recommended?
That's where I was heading.
Thank you.
I'm working here on finding in my staff report too. Hold on. Go ahead, you can go ahead.
I would just add a last sentence that say, and the condition to allow lots 14, 15, and 16 with a minimum frontage width of 35 feet. And I think I answered everybody's questions that I was taking notes on. If anything comes up, I'll be available. Thank you.
So are we going to amend this, or are you just going to?
That's up to you.
No, it's up to you.
No, it's up to you guys. This is the way it works. What he's referring to with the lots frontage, we call it a lot deviation request. So in a short plat or an administrative action, I would go to the board, I would do an ASR and a resolution, or it's not even a resolution, it's a vote, voice vote. And, you know, the applicant would request in writing that they want a deviation from the lot frontage. They provide the justification or rationale as to why. Most of the time it's because it's an infill situation and they're creating a flag lot. So that flag lot, the access, the only actual frontage is usually about 20 to 30 feet depending on the specific layout. And so they come in and they'd be like, we want this, but that's why it's there. It's for allowing for deviations from these when it makes sense. But it's also not a carte blanche. It's not necessarily going to be approved, though I haven't had one denied at this point. So you can do it two ways. And Mr. Stromstad's suggesting is basically with your thing, you carry all that forward because there's two caveats and in there, and he read them. One is staff initiated, the other one can be done through the planning commission, and it just skips a process, moves it forward, puts it on the front of the, commissioners know right off the bat that there's 3 lots that don't meet our frontage requirements, but the planning commission either says, yep, that's okay, nope, it's okay, not, or it's neutral. If we're going to amend the motion and entertain Mr. Stromstad's recommendation, then I believe that what he proposed is a good approach. We just amend the motion, we add those specific lots, and that indicates that you're aware of it.
Do we have to amend the motion since the motion hasn't been made yet? Can we just say it with that sentence in it?
Well, that's what I was.
There's no motion been made yet.
Right.
We can just say it with that new sentence and it's all done?
Right, but I don't remember exactly how to say that.
Well, it doesn't matter, but we don't have to do an amendment. We just have to read it properly and we're done.
Right.
Okay, no amendments. Let's just read it the way he said it. Did anybody write that down?
No.
That's what you're here for, people.
Well, Chair, you have to tell us that.
There is no motion. Just go ahead and say it again. Somebody write it down.
I'm doing that right now.
Before we get that far, Derek, could you maybe explain to us why the minimum lot frontage exists to
Aesthetics.
begin with it? So it's just aesthetics, it's nothing
Generally
about
speaking.
emergency access
No,
or
the-
health, safety,
No,
welfare?
it has to do with separation, usually of driveway accesses. So we're looking at 35, you got a 20-foot, you'd be dropping that driveway right there.
Right.
And then 20 feet later, you got another one. 20 feet later, you got
Yeah.
another one.
And there's
But
no
it's into a cul-de-sac.
curb gutter sidewalk out there, so you don't have to
Not
worry
at
about
this point in time, no.
transitions or anything like that.
Yeah, it's,
Well, the reality is, with the shape of those lots, that house has to be pulled back so far in order to comply with those setbacks. That all they are is driveways anyway.
pretty much, yep. Some jurisdictions, when they do that, a caveat, I don't know about down here, but up in the Spokane area, quite often what it is you take that distance of the required setback, 25 feet, and then you measure the width of the lot there, and if it meets lot frontage, it's considered okay. And you don't even have to go through all the extra review. So you can administratively allow that, but we don't have that process here.
So with the addition, I have a question. With that addition of this final sentence of allocating those 3 lots, 15, 16, and 17, of 35, 35, and 47, is that correct?
35. You said minimum 35, right?
14,
I made it
15,
simple.
16.
The half-acre lot requirement is 35-foot minimum, so we're meeting that threshold. And so that was my recommendation, to keep it at 35 feet. I did want to add a couple more things to the record. We did call that out in keynote 4 on the preliminary plat, so that was on the public notice that it's not a slip-in at the last minute. And another requirement that we were adhering to is the cul-de-sac lengths are 600 feet maximum, and that's a fire department requirement. So this is exactly 600 feet. It would have been better for the lot layout if we could extend that cul-de-sac another 50 or 60 feet. We would have meet the minimum lot frontages. We chose the lesser of 2 evils, and that's where we came to. And aesthetics is exactly correct on why the 35 and 50. And I can read.
Yeah, what were those lots again?
Sure. So I'll just read it. So with the recommendation as it says on the slide, and the condition to allow lots 14, 15, and 16 with a minimum lot frontage width of 35 feet.
With a minimum frontage of 35.
Yeah. I changed the way I've got that written. So, and conditions of approval, including allowing for the reduced frontage of lots 14, 16, 15 and 16 to 35 feet.
14, 15, and 16?
Yeah.
Correct.
Does that grammatically make sense to everybody?
Good, thank you. Oh, I didn't see that.
We should have an and between
Yeah,
15 and
after
16.
15, put and.
Something, I kept looking up there, I'm like, something doesn't look right, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Thank you. It's been a long day.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Is there any public testimony? No. Is there any call-in testimony, email testimony? Does staff have any final comments?
Nope.
Is there any clarification of public statements needed by anyone in the audience? The public testimony portion of public hearing SUV 2022-1 is closed. Is there any discussion amongst planning commission prior to entertaining a motion? I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Franklin County Planning Department, I move that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the Franklin County Board of County Commissioners for SUB 2022-01. This recommendation should be forwarded with the suggested findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval, including allowing for the reduced frontage of lots 14, 15, and 16 to 35-foot width.
I like that better, thank you. Width, not, that could be length. So, I'm gonna modify that.
Is there a second? The motion has been moved by Commissioner Didier and seconded by Commissioner Knifton that we forward to the Board of Commissioners a recommendation of approval for SUB 2022-1 with the, I don't know what the numbers are. I don't have it in front of me.
Which,
Findings of fact and conditions of approval.
oh. I want to say, where'd that go? All right, hold on a second.
With the 6 findings of fact and the 4 conditions of approval.
Okay.
Is there any discussion? May we have a roll call vote?
Mike Corrales.
Yes.
Mike Vincent.
Yes.
Lane Lowe is absent. Stacy Knifton.
Yes.
Manny Gutierrez. Melinda Didier.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion has been approved.
Okay, we are moving on to item 4. Item 4 is the public hearing for file SUB 2022-2. The proposal is to allow for the development of single-family residential subdivision comprising of one parcel, 126-150-015, totaling approximately 29.45 acres. The subdivision would create 22 lots, averaging 1 acre. The area surrounding the proposed subdivision has a zoning designation of Rural Community 1 with a Rural Shoreline Development Comprehensive Land Use designation. I declare the public hearing for SUB 2022-2 open at 8:10. May we have staff present the staff report, please?
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned, this is sub 2202, sorry, 2022-02. Kohler subdivision. Parcel number 126150015, generally located north of Dent Road, west of Richview Drive, south of Fanning Road, and east of the Columbia River. Comp plan is rural shoreline development. Zoning is rural community, RC1, or rural community 1. As mentioned, this is a request to subdivide 29.45 acres into 22 1-acre on average lots. That is the property. So, this is Pelican. This is Goose Hollow. So, it's up in, this is Dent, and this is Dent. And this is why that other thing makes sense. Because this is the future extension of Fraser Road. As many of you are probably aware, Dent Road runs, way out there and then does a 90-degree turn and runs north-south. Public Works, if you go way up here, you'll see that Fraser Road up north lines up with Dent Road, the north-south Dent Road. So Public Works is in the process, I don't know, how long or when they're going to do anything with the south leg of Dent there, but this is Fraser Road, and it's proposed to continue along this edge. So this would be, Burns is down here, so you take Dent and it turn into Fraser, or they can come in from, Glade North or even, at that point, Columbia River Road. You can cut across to coming up. So Fraser Road, it's that Fraser, but it's not connected to the existing Fraser yet. It's a new Fraser. It'll be eventually Fraser will terminate on Burns Road. Site pictures. It's basically some vineyard. This is from the assessor's site. I don't believe the vineyards are there anymore. There's a for sale sign. It's kind of funny, the assessor's pictures has a for sale sign in it. This is the site now. It's when we went to post the sign. Actually, looks like it's on the corner of, this is at that intersection corner. So this is the actual property out that way. Dent is over here, so. Again, staff notified agencies, mailed notices to property owners within 1 mile, and posted the property and posted in the graphic on March 3rd. Mitigated determination of non-significance was issued on March 3rd as well. Since somebody's going to probably ask, I better get out. Just teasing.
I'm good.
And normally, and in the future, we will have those listed on the slides, just so that we go through them a little quicker, potentially. If I recall correctly, it's pretty much the same. So the same, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's stay in, and I'll get into the conditions later on in the presentation. Let's get through we have comments, 2 comments from the public. The one on the left primarily involves policy decisions that aren't under the purview of the Planning Commission regarding, they believe that we need to start building parks out there, implementing, a more robust, and planning for parks in this area. Unfortunately, Franklin County does not have parks. We don't have the staff, we don't have the equipment, and we don't have the ground. There are no public parks in Franklin County unincorporated. What we used to have were generally absorbed by the city, and I don't know if there was anything up north, but I know that a lot of the trail work along the river, and I think even Chiawana Park were actually built by the county. And then over time, they got out of the park business and gave those over, or transferred those assets over to the city. So the county doesn't have, so it's not a simple matter of just designating an area, building a park. We would actually have to create a whole division or contract out and pay significant sums. And we don't have the land. Now, we could require that developers set aside parkland, but we can't do that if we don't have a park plan. You can't just ask someone to set it apart. So there's a significant process that needs to be undertaken before the county would be able to start doing parks. Unfortunately, we're just not set up for it. Can't remember the second one involved. Hold on a second. Just can't read. My eyes have gotten old. I used to be able to see better. And I don't like it. Okay. Okay, this is one that has, okay, so this involves concerns regarding the 90-degree turn on Dent and how, and that they've seen they've had their fence ran into 3 times of vehicles driving too fast on the sharp 90-degree turn. They have concerns regarding more traffic being introduced. And then they ask about what's going to be done with the turn. Well, effectively, that would be determined by Public Works and worked out at the time of actual development. They may have conditions, but that's really, again, not within our purview. Traffic mitigations and things like that are almost scientific, or formulaic is the term. If it doesn't meet a certain level of traffic or number of accidents or number of deaths, unfortunately, a lot of times there's no ability for government to mandate actions. They can request and ask, but we don't get to just, we have to balance. We have to balance the public's rights, but also the landowner or the developer's rights. There's a whole thing called LUPA, which is the Land Use Petition Act, which kind of articulates a lot of the areas where we can and cannot make requirements and under what conditions we can or cannot make those requirements. Unfortunately, so traffic is a big one. Our experience with traffic is very individual. So often what appears to be a lot of traffic or a dangerous intersection because somebody saw something is not deemed by the agencies or whatnot to rise to the level of emergency. Optimally, there'd be enough money and funds to where we could fix everything that we see out there, but unfortunately, that's not the way it works. We don't have those types of dollars, and they basically seem to prioritize funding of projects based on public risk. And if you don't hit those triggers of volumes and stuff, it's just nothing's going to happen. And unfortunately. So that said, though, there are going to be improvements made out there because that Fraser Road's got to connect into Dent. There may be mitigations or things that'll help. But at a minimum, if it's not a 3-way stop, I would assume the east-west Dent would be a stop. And then north-south would be, if it's a through street, it would be straight instead of that curve. So whether or not that'll stop speeders, that's a whole different thing. And again, outside of our purview, unfortunately. We can't control what bad actors do. Okay. This is again very similar to the last one regarding SEPA. So, as mentioned, north extension of Fraser Road, north of Dent Road, and via an internal access will be provided via an internal road system. Same scenario regarding water, fire, and septics. These are the folks that actually submitted comments, and those were all included in the staff report. For the specific mitigations, they're pretty much exactly the same, except DAHP, this was an inadvertent. DAHP didn't really have much to say about this property and didn't have any issues with what we call the inadvertent discovery protocol, which is the lowest kind of standard of review for a property. You don't have to hire an archaeologist to study the site and all this other stuff. It's just that you're required, and this is actually the case with anybody digging anything in your backyard or anywhere. You find an artifact, you're supposed to report it. These guys really have to report it because if they don't, and somebody, it can really cause some problems. But so that's the protocol. As they start moving dirt, they see something, they stop. Then they have to bring in biologist or archaeologist or whatever regard, or coroner, depending on what they find. So DHP was okay with the inadvertent, whereas for Spencer's they weren't. And that's because there was a known site proximity issue there. But yeah, they have to, do the best management practices for dust control, construction, stormwater, pollution prevention. They're pretty standard. The biggest thing that kind of changes on the subdivisions is what this DAHP requirement, that tends to be. And they're going to be putting in a road. That's not through the SEPA, but that Fraser Road extension, they're going to have to be putting that in. Yeah, any other questions, happy to answer them, and this is a suggested motion.
Does the applicant, do any commissioners have questions of staff?
Question of the fire suppression for this type of development that has individual wells. Was it a 20,000 underground tank? 20,000
Yeah,
underground
they can
tank?
do, if they're doing on-site fire suppression, it would be usually in this scenario done through a 20,000 gallon tank, or maybe they have to do multiples depending on the size of the development. That's going to be worked out between them and the fire district. Again, the county fire protection's under the purview of the fire district, so whatever they require. As far as the specific system implementation, if they did not have that, then they would need to adhere to what we call the fire setbacks, which are 25 in the front, 20 to the side instead of the standard 10, 25 in the rear instead of, I think, 20 in the rear, and then 15-foot separation between structures instead of the standard. So it's achieved through a larger setback and distances between structures. So the closest any two structures on two properties would be 40 foot instead of 20 foot.
Right.
These types of things. There's also
Or increase
construction things they can do that
like
can
increased
also.
firewall type of
Exactly,
thing.
yeah.
Right.
So,
Okay, thanks.
Does the applicant wish to speak?
Good evening again, Caleb
oh,
Stromstead.
that's right, that was the last one.
Octera Engineering. This one's a lot simpler. Here representing the applicant. We're obviously in favor of this subdivision. A couple questions just to address. Mr. Suarez's email comment about the Dent Road and Fraser Road intersection. In discussions with Public Works, it's going to be a stop on Dent Road heading west, like Derek mentioned. And so Fraser Road and the extension south will be through street. So people hitting that hard 90 should stop because they have a stop sign now. So hopefully that will help in that situation. The Department of Archaeological and Historical Preservations, they make their recommendation. We actually did a cultural survey for this. There's a known archaeological site near the river, so we did that in advance. They agreed with the findings that an inadvertent discovery protocol was all that was needed.
Okay. I'm surprised.
And then the fire suppression tank, that's standard in the county when it's per county code, when you don't have water for fire hydrants, the 20,000 gallon static underground fire suppression tanks provided, and we coordinate that with Chief Harris, the fire district. Other than that, this one's straightforward. We don't have any other recommended changes. Thanks to staff and everybody for being here at this hour, hearing this. Thank you.
Hey, is that a hard stop coming to that stop sign on Dent to Fraser, or are they gonna light that up somehow, or speed bumps coming up to it?
It's a good question. We'll work that out with engineering, and I'll actually make a note to bring that up to them. That's a good point.
And there's definitely going to be that, because right now there's nothing.
Yeah.
Dent just turns. There's no nothing. I don't even know if there's a thing that says Dent turns ahead. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, we would, based on what I've seen the Public Works Department do in the past, there would be, stop signs, flashing signs. Maybe those are temporary, but now they definitely have liked what happened when they put in the flashing ones at
Sagemore,
yeah,
South Landing.
Yeah, because they're great. They don't stop everything, but they definitely make you notice, because you'll see that flashing out of your peripheral vision. And you're like, what's that?
Totally agree. I mean, it seems like there always has to be so many wrecks, and people get killed at those intersections before they actually do something.
That's, it is disappointing, but it's how they, because of just that imbalance between funding now, they have to make a priority, and those ones that have the highest fatalities or serious accidents are priority, because they're causing the most carnage. So they'll do what they can to fund those. But yeah, I've seen a few circumstances where they were just a few counts below, no funding. Not here, but in Spokane and some other areas I've been to, where unfortunately it's exactly that.
But I saw
A lot of people have to
note, I
die.
saw that Clipper deal that went down the Columbia River Road. I know we were talking about that. I noticed that the county came in and put basically a barrier across there to keep, any potential car from flying off that into a roof of a house down below. But that just went in a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that was great.
And
a little bit of ice,
and
sliding.
Public Works
Just
does
right
what they
off
can
the
with
edge.
limited resources. I mean, thankfully, because the one benefit from the COVID is that we didn't have to get into the Public Works. The Public Works has more funds available than often, so it's the one benefit I would say we got from COVID is we got some dollars that we might be able to apply some of that to our road systems. But counties are very strapped when it comes to their ability to obtain resources through taxation or other methodologies. They're very restricted in what they can do. Cities can do a lot of things as far as raising revenue that counties can't in the state of Washington. So that limits things too. Taxing authority and stuff like that is different between cities and counties. So.
Okay, done?
Thank you.
All right. There is no in-person testimony. Is there any call-in or public? Any email? Does staff have any final comments?
Nope.
Is there any clarification of public statements needed by anyone from the audience? No. Public portion of the public hearing for SUV 2022-2 is closed. Is there any discussion among Planning Commission prior to entertaining a motion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion. From a new guy preferably.
There's only two that can speak to it.
County Planning Department recommends that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation to the Franklin County Board of County Commissioners for SUB 2022-02. This recommendation may be forwarded with the suggested findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions of approval.
That'd be 6 and 4 again. Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Knifton has moved and Commissioner Vincent has seconded that we forward to Board of Commissioners a recommendation of approval for SUB 2022-02 with the 6 adopted findings of fact and 4 conditions of approval. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Mike Corrales.
Yes.
Mike Vincent.
Yes.
Layton is absent. Stacy Knifton.
Yes.
Manny Gutierrez.
Yes.
Melinda Didier.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion has been approved.
Okay, motion passes and Planning Commission meeting is adjourned.
Oh, sorry. On the agenda, we have administrative items. Are there any administrative items?
No, nothing specific unless you guys had questions.
Can I just ask one question? Does the planning department have a copy machine that makes duplex copies? Like,
We do?
is it broken?
No.
Duplex, both sides.
Yes.
Oh.
Duplex takes about 3 times as long per copy packet, so.
So do you guys need a new copy machine?
Have you tried to order a new copier lately?
No, I was just asking if you needed some help with
No,
persuading the commission.
No, I actually have,
Buy you a new
So
copy machine.
I was contacted and for whatever reason, this is the way the county's always done it. I don't know why.
Okay.
It's just, it's how they've always,
You wanna cut
it's
this
always
in
been.
half?
And
Well-
in fact, I've been, and I know the commissioners want it this way. Or at least that's what I was told as well.
Oh,
So,
okay.
that, not this, I mean, the board.
Right.
That said, yeah, no, I don't like this. Twice my paper
I
cost.
know.
But I was told one reason is because some people like to set things side by side and can't do that as easily. There's all sorts of stuff. But this is the thing about copiers. I was contacted by IS. Your lease is coming up. Let's get your order in now because one office has been waiting 6 months and another one's on month 9. It has something to do with the chips or, I don't know. I'm getting tired of all the excuses as to why nobody else can do their job. But
Copies in the mail today, when it was Sunday, obviously that thick, and I saw your email request for it to be mailed to you if you'd like. I think with all the paper you save, in a couple of meetings, you can buy everybody an iPad and you can download the emails.
there are a lot of things that we're in the process of seeing what we can do to change. It's just,
So I would, just for future meetings, you can just dispense with sending me the papers and just email the.
just do the email.
Yeah, just email
Okay.
it. It's because I also noticed that the post office charged you $24 to mail just my packet, so. Yeah. So just email it, I'll be fine.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of work. Thank God I got those two because frankly, they're the ones handling most of the day-to-day stuff while I try to get a lot of other things fixed.
Yeah, or if you guys even, like you posted on your webpage, right? So you could just send me a link to the packet,
Yeah,
whatever's easiest.
Yeah, we could do something like that. Because it's posted on the agenda.
So we still do have the bylaws that we need to adopt. these gentlemen have received copies of the old and the new. I'm hoping maybe we can vote on this bylaws, finally adopt at the next meeting. So, I've sent everybody multiple copies of it, but let me know if you need a copy of the new bylaws. We've looked at them. I did want them to have some time to look at them, and I would appreciate if they have any recommendations or something, we discuss that at the next meeting, but then hopefully vote and adopt them or modify them or do whatever we're going to do with them and get those things in
So you
place.
just don't fit on the agenda, and we'll just pull them off the shelf and read what you already sent out, the bylaws.
Don't you guys keep
Yeah,
all
yeah, I
of this
have a copy
stuff?
of it.
You have all of
I
it?
kept a copy of the bylaws, it's pretty simple.
I
stuff.
collect these. No. So, that's enough for me. Feel free
Well,
to,
here, I'll give this back to you, and you can copy the other side for the next meeting.
Oh, that'd be a nightmare to figure out how to put the paper in the machine.
well, that's the thing, every time you're gonna end up with stuff upside down and anywho, but, yeah, supposedly my new copiers are supposed to be faster if I ever get them. And so, about five copies per minute faster.
Okay.
Sounds